Who doesn't? Everybody loves them. They are always powerful, they are always amazing, they are always overpowered. If you played a Skyrim, then you most likely, most certainly, at one point in your life, you built a sniper rogue. Because they are amazing. They are a amazing thing to have. Now, little disclaimers before we get into these builds. The gameplay footage that you are going to be seeing in the background is mostly going to be for party play, because I have already a different video showcasing you how a build like this could most certainly clear entire camps of enemies solo by using the stealth mechanic on rogue characters. So I'm not going to explain completely the stealth mechanic on itself. For that, I'll have the video, the link in the video description for that one different video that I have on how to exploit the stealth mechanic and take advantage for that and kill entire enemy camps. That being said, this build is going to be an amazing thing. It's still going to be able to do that, but this is going to showcase how it works on party play. And basically, what I love about this build is that you're never ever going to be seen by the enemy. You're always going to be a force of shadows. I love that. Second, I always like to make my early game builds to be a level 6, because level 6 is something attainable in the first chapter of the game. That is not going to be the case in here. We're going to be building this guy for level 7 with the itemization that we are going to get as far as level 7 as well, because while this is still going to be this is still going to be quite effective prior to level 7, but at level 7 is when the build is going to be fully established for you just to get better beyond that point. But that is when the build is going to shine the most, because that is when it's going to receive the highest spike power. And that is because we're going to be multi-classing this build, so it's going to take a little bit longer for it to shine, but it's going to shine brighter in the darkness than any other different build that you would have, because of the multi-classing potential and capabilities that we are going to have. That being said, let's begin with the levels. Let's begin at level 1 with our Rogue. The Rogue is going to give us sneak attack range. This is going to be our main means of damage at all times. Now it's also going to give us proficiency with light armor, simple weapons, hand crossbows, long swords, rapiers, short swords, and whatnot. If, on the other hand, you choose the high elf race, the thing that you are going to receive, it's going to be a proficiency with longbow, which I can't stress enough how amazing it is for you to increase the damage a little bit better. I think that overall longbows are all in all just better, but you can also have short bows in each of your hands, which is, it actually looks flashy and amazing. It's something nice. As a rogue, we're also going to get Sleight of Hand right here, and as you can see, it has +2 as well as Stealth +2. What that means is that we are receiving expertise on these two right here, so that is why they appear as double. Now the ability scores that we are going to be using with our rogue, they are going to be quite interesting. The most important thing is going to be just dexterity and wisdom. Wisdom, because we are going to be swapping our class into our Gloomstalker, and our Gloomstalker is going to take advantage of the ability modifiers for his spells from Wisdom. That leads us to two choices in here. If you want to, for example, make a rogue that is just going to be a side crew member, if you choose, for example, Asterion to be your main rogue, as I am doing right here, you're going to dump all of your points into Constitution. But just have in mind that Asterion is never, ever going to be seen. At least your rogue is never going to be seen. If, on the other hand, your rogue is going to be the main face of your party, if your main character is the rogue, it's always amazing to have 15 charisma for you to be able to bypass all of the social skills. And to have in mind, this is hugely important. Constitution, it's a nice thing to have as a side crew member, but you not need it because you're never going to be seen with this character. Level 2 as a rogue is basically going to give us the bonus action for hiding. And this is amazing because you can attack and hide, attack and hide, attack and hide. That is basically what you're going to get at level 2. At level 3, on the other hand, this is where things are going to start getting spicy. You are going to get the bonus for the fast hand, meaning you're going to be able to do two beautiful precious bonus actions. We're gonna talk about them on the gameplay section of the game, but basically what this thing is going to allow you to do is always perform the entirety of your roster of actions, like the spells that you have, the misty step that you're going to have, the dash that you are going to desperately need with this build, and still be able to attack twice, because we're going to be able to attack twice with this character, and still be able to enter into stealth. It's just going to be amazing and delightful. But then again, this is only true if you choose the subclass for the thief. Unfortunately, I know that a lot of people like assassin. That is not going to be able to be possible. We're not going to be able to make this work with assassin. You can make this thing work, but I wouldn't advise it. It's too much of a hassle and you get too much exposure. If you really want to be in the shadows 100% of the time, then thief is the right path to take. Now at level 4, we are going to get our first subclass, well, our first multi-class, which is going to be into Ranger. We're going to receive our Fine Familiar to be able to summon a companion. As for the favorite enemy, I should always advise for you to take Bounty Hunter, because this is going to basically increase the efficiency of our Ensnaring Strike, and the rest of them that you just focus on one specific enemy, whereas this thing is always going to be affecting other things, which is always amazing. The choice that you are going to take on the natural explorer thing, this is very important. You should never ever take the Urban Tracker, because you already have proficiency on Sleight of Hands. So this is basically just negating itself, because you're not going to get anything. Proficiencies, they do not stack in this game, so this is going to do nothing for you. I either advise to use Beast Tamer, although I never use companions with this build because I like for this guy to be a lone wolf. It's always a nice thing to have it. This is going to allow you to cast the beast to find a companion without wasting a spell slot. And then the rest of them, they are just amazing things, because you are going to gain resistances to different types of damage. But then again, you're never going to be damaged with this character, so yeah, the ideal thing would be to take the Beast Tamer. The abilities, you can change things around here and there, but they are not going to be important. At level 5, we are going to get our second level of Ranger, and we're going to get new spells. The spells that I always advise for you to have, it's going to be Ensnaring Strike. Ensnaring Strike is basically going to allow you to have more hit chance against the enemy, both on your attacks and spells, and then the enemy is going to have a more difficult time being able to land their hits and whatnot. It costs an action and a bonus action, but thanks to our rogue, we do have lots of bonus actions to spare and still be able to remain in the shadows, so this is going to be amazing. We're also going to have Hunter's Mark, which is going to cost you a bonus action if you want to mark someone, a specific enemy. And do remember as well that we have more than enough bonus actions to keep our marks on the enemy that we want to have the enemy, and still be able to go back to the shadows. The fighting style, this is going to be spicy. This is what I like, the archery. The archery is going to help us to diminish one specific feat that we are going to take. Archery basically increases your hit chance with your bows. At level 6, we are going to get our level 3 of Ranger. At this point, we are going to receive a new spell, and I always advise for you to take Speak with Animals, because you are going to be missing out on lots of things if you do not have this thing with your characters. It's always nice to be able to be speaking to animals in this game, and here is where we're going to be choosing our subclass for our multi-class character, which is going to be basically a thief that is also going to be a Gloomstalker. The Gloomstalker is going to give you a bonus action into hide, but then again, we do not care about this thing. We already received 2, not only 1, but 2 from the thief, so this is not important. What it is going to be important is going to be Dread Ambusher. Dread Ambusher is going to allow you to hit the enemy once, but it's just, even though that, well, is still an action, is going to allow you to use a second sneak attack, at least on the first turn of the combat. It's also going to yield you superior dark vision to be able to hit the enemies at a longer distance, even when they are hiding in dark places, without having to suffer disadvantages, so we're always going to be able to use our sneak attacks. And then replay spell, that is not really important, you can disregard this thing completely. At level 7, And at level 4 of our Gloomstalker, this is where our build is going to be fully established, and this is where we're going to be getting the most damage out of our build, because here we are going to be able the replace spell. This is really not going to be that important. As a matter of fact, I always advise for you to have these things right here. You cannot, if you want to, you can change, just don't change anything right here. There's just little things, but on the other hand, we are going to be able to select our feat, which is going to be Sharp Shooter. This thing is going to increase your damage by 10, which is amazing. It's huge. Although you are going to receive a -5 penalty to your attack rolls, what this means essentially is that you're going to receive a penalty on your hit chance. But do have in mind that we have archery from our previous levels on our rangers, so that is going to be, it's not going to matter that much. You are still going to be able to use your feature right here for sharpshooter, and also this is not going to receive penalty when attacking from high ground rules. So you can attack enemies that are on high ground even though that you are not on high ground, although you are still going to take advantage of that high ground. Do have in mind that this is a feature that you can turn on and off without any cost at your leisure. This is something that the game doesn't tell you, so take advantage of this thing. When you feel that you do not have enough hit chance, you turn this off, but thanks to the hiding, the repositioning, the mobility of this character, we're always going to have most likely 99% chance of being able to hit the enemy, which is going to be huge damage. It's going to be huge damage. It's just amazing. I love this rogue. It's deadly. It's amazing. Let's move on. Let's talk about the itemization of the character. This is very important because most of those things you are going to be able to get them on the first act of the game, and there's going to be a link in the video description to each and every single one of these items for you to be able to find them yourself. The first thing that we are going to have is going to be the Spider Silk Armor. This is going to give you a +1 to your stealth checks, which is going to grant for the enemy never to be able to find you. We're going to be stacking this thing with the Smuggler's Ring, which is going to give you a +2 into stealth and +2 into his lead of hand. I want to make a quick clarification in here. The stealth is not going to showcase right here on the proficiencies, so do not be scared about that. If you unequip the ring, it's going to diminish your ability to be able to perform stealth. If you remove your armor, it's not going to happen anything, because this is not native stealth on itself. It's just going to trigger when the enemy is looking for you. Although there are many light armors in the game that are going to give you +1 into stealth, so you can choose whichever one you like, but these two things are a must. And then we have the Gloves of Thievery. The Gloves of Thievery are going to give you advantage on your sleight of hand checks, and thanks to this thing you are going to ensure that you're never ever going to miss opening a lock with your rogue, which is one thing that we have this guy in the party as well. And then we are going to have the Amulet of Misty Step. I can't stress enough how important this thing is. What we are going to be using this thing for is that every time that we use the last known location mechanic, we can use this thing to cast last known location and then use Misty Step, move to a completely different location. When the enemy manages to finally be in that place, there's no one going to be there, and the enemy is going to be wasting one turn trying to look for something that is never going to be there. So that is amazing. Also, this thing is amazing for repositioning all in all in different places, and you're going to be able to cast this thing once per short rest. And finally, we are going to have the Spring Step Boots, which is going to allow us to have more movement speed. I can't stress enough how important it is for a rogue to have movement speed, because you are going to be moving to lots of places. The ideal thing that you want to do is just cast that last known location, deal damage, go back into hiding, and then move to a different place for the enemy to go to that last known location just to find out that there's no one there. As for the bow, you can use whatever you feel comfortable with. It's really not going to matter, but since you are choosing a elf, you are going to have proficiencies with longbows, and ideally you want to be choosing longbows. The longbow that you choose is not going to be that much of relevance, but still I advise for you to use longbows just to get that little extra nip of damage. Let's move on, shall we? Now let's talk about how is this build going to be working. Like I said, the footage that you are going to have in the background is always going to be in the party, and the first advice that I am going to give you is that the rogue should always going to be hiding. You should never exit out of stealth with your rogue, even while you're doing exploration, because if you're doing exploration with your main character and they enter combat, chances are that the rogue is always going to be into stealth and he's never going to be seen, so he's never going to immediately enter into combat. That leads you to the possibility of being able to sneak behind the enemy and deal the first damage. And like I said, this rogue right here, as we have it built, it has the potential, it has the capability of killing enemies in just one single turn. And also, one thing that we are going to be taking advantage of this with this rogue, and I cannot stress how important it is to take advantage of the last known location mechanic. Usually, two things can happen right here. You can use your last known location mechanic and tank through the stealth checks, as you are seeing right here. Since you have so much stealth, it's usually hard for the enemy to be able to find you. What's happening in here? The enemy is wasting an action. When they go investigate the last known location and you're never going to be found, that means that that enemy is not going to be attacking on that turn, meaning the rest of your party can be safe from the damage of the enemy because they are looking for you on a place where they are not going to find anything. The second thing is that since you have dash, you have Misty Step. I can't stress enough how important it is for you to use Misty Step on certain situations. Usually what you want to do is just like I showed you on my video on how to abuse stealth in this game, you place the last known location with your ranger, and once you have the last known location with your ranger, you move away from that position because you do not want to be found by the enemy. So you get your last known location, you get away, and you keep dealing damage from a distance. Now, you have enough, more than enough, bonus actions to be using Snaring Strike, to be using Hunter's Mark, to use the first two attacks that you are going to be able to do with the rogue because of Dread Ambusher. Dread Ambusher is going to be a independent action. It's still going to be an action, but it's going to be an independent action. When you use Dread Ambusher at the start of combat, then you get to attack free again, so you can use the sneak range attack to deal that more damage. And when you do this, since you have the plus 10 damage that we receive from our level 7 feature, you're most likely always going to be killing anyone. And I can't stress enough how important it is for this to always be in the shadows. The enemy is never ever going to see this character, and it's not only going to be a deadly force of shadows because this character most likely is going to be able to kill many enemies in just one single turn, but it's also going to be granting utility for the party because of the last known location. And that is basically how this build is going to work. Stealth is very powerful in this game, is very overpowered. I can't stress enough how this amazing is. How amazing this is. May the force be with you. Yeah, it sounded like Yoda a little bit right there. Anyways, if you like the content, so like and the super appreciated. Subscribe to the channel before you close the door. No one has told you today that you're a gorgeous and beautiful person. You are indeed a gorgeous and beautiful person. I will be seeing you goddamn gorgeous and beautiful people next one. A beautiful day. And goodbye.